Hello and welcome back to Nasty Metal Production YouTube, and welcome to the very first Friday review of 2021. And so for this review, due to the request of the guitar player of this band, who actually had contacted me on Christmas Day on whether or not I'd be interested in receiving a copy of this album for reviewing, and of course I replied with yes, and pretty much on the day close to New Year's Eve, I ended up receiving it, and I almost thought about doing a Unearthed Mail episode on this one, but on at least on the package, I may be opening up, but I decided that I'd wait to show this until I did this video. But that's, of course, what is the comeback album and third full-length album for at least under the Cruella name. That's Rampage right here. Again, this was their comeback album. Again, Roger DeCarlo, of course, one of the original members that's at least left in the band right now. But again, Cruella, Rampage, it would have been, 18 years since 1990 shocked the world. So, again, just great. Again, Rampage, originally this was released on April 26th of 2019, independently and digitally through, of course, the band's Bandcamp page, until Stormspell Records picked it up and decided to release it physically on September 19th. So, when it comes to this band, again, they are a cult metal band based out of Portland, Oregon. And right now, the only original member, at least two, I did say two original members that are at least left, because of Roger DeCarlo being the guitar player of this band, and of course we have Kirk Johnson, who originally was doing guitars as well since 1986, but now is resigning to playing bass since 2018. So there. But again, this is, again, the long-awaited third full-length album. Again, it would have been like I've stated, 18 years since 1990 Shocked the World, which was the final album they had released before, I think, they split up in 1992. But their first two albums being Vengeance Is Mine and Shock the World would get reissued through the cult reissue label Heaven and Hell Records, and that would be some decades later. But this album, of course, being under Stormspell, again, another relatively respected underground metal label. So there you go. All right. I should point out that they were all originally formed in 1986. So, and also, I definitely should start talking about some of the newer members. At one point, I definitely should mention that my good friend Jim Harris was at one point singing for Cruella, and during that time in 2018, with Cruella, they got to at least go on tour with YNT, and even opened up got to play at the Warner Theater down in Fresno, California, which is close to home to me, because that's where I grew up in Fresno, California. That's where I was born and raised in for the most part of my childhood. And the Warner Theater was a very much respected place, and when it comes to a lot of the bands that played there, you can find there's a great YouTube channel that actually shows a lot of some of the footage of bands that played there, including like AC/DC and Def Leppard and Pat Travers, and those kind of artists got to play there, and there's some great footage, archival footage of that, but I don't want to talk about too much about that, but it's just close to home. But Jim Harris is not in Cruella. Again, he's just been doing more stuff with Silent Storm. But what do we have in this band right here? Again, besides Roger DeCarlo and Kirk Johnson, we have drummer Caleb Davies and singer Tony Prophet. So, without further ado, since I mostly babbled through the most of this video, basically taking almost close to 4 minutes of this shit, let's get into my review of Rampage from Cruella. Alright, so before I really get into any of my thoughts on this album, let's do a track listing rundown. We got 7 songs here, and it all clocks in at 33 minutes and 15 seconds. And these 7 songs are Rampage being the title track, Leave Me Alone, Domestic Violence, Zombie March, March into Fire, Slapped in the Face, Burnt, and Ancient Ruins. I'm trying to look as much on the page here for the track listing. I could have looked on the back of the cover here, but I decided not to. Alright, so there's your track listing there. And as far as the album is concerned, compared to a lot of the first two albums, this one's a much heavier album compared to some of them, even at times almost angrier in places. Again, it was definitely mentioned to me beforehand when I was chatting with Roger DeCarlo that there is definitely some mixtures of like thrash metal and at times a little bit of death metal, but I think that's more so comes from just the overall playing and due to also Caleb Davies' drumming, which again, in some cases, it's not really all that different from really the most recent Raven album, Metal City, in terms of just how fast and the extremities and just the overall speed and velocity that some of this album is being played at. But that's not to say that there isn't any of that's in here as far as those death metal influences. You definitely can hear it in songs like Burnt, and either at times Slapped in the Face, Zombie March, or Domestic Violence. You can definitely hear it in there. But for the most part, it really just stays within the realm of just straight up classic speed heavy metal, or at times US parametal, as I like to also refer to some of it. But you still get plenty. Again, when it comes to like the songs like Rampage and Leave Me Alone, or even again Slapped in the Face and Ancient Ruins, there's some cool stuff in here. And as far as recording and production wise, it's definitely a raw album. I mean, their earlier material was not all that perfectly recorded anyways, but they definitely have a charm of its own. And this one, for modern day, is definitely better recorded compared to those, but still, for modern day production, it's still pretty raw. But it adds a little something to the album. It definitely gives it. And I do have to say that Tony Prophet's vocals definitely at times are very Halfordish in a lot of places. Again, it's very it is for sure exampled at least on Rampage, the title track, which definitely has a lot of Judas Priest influences on this one. You really can hear the Judas Priest stuff on this song, and of course, again, just other great speed metal like songs on here, like Leave Me Alone and Slapped in the Face are just great. Ancient Ruins, on the other hand, I definitely should have to talk about. It's this album's, again, it's close to being the sole epic metal track here on the album. Again, it's a pretty cool one here. I really do like this song, and I think, again, it is the song that ends the album. I just think it really is cool the way it begins. You got that little bit of that intro, that typical underground you get with all those private metal pressing where they have to have an epic intro like "In the days of time," and you expect those vocal effects. You get a lot of that. I know I'm speaking gibberish, but I'm just trying to give you an example of what you kind of get with the intro. Again, that's very typical of a lot of private metal press bands, especially when they like to add an intro into one of their songs. They always would come up with something that's just, oh, this would be so epic. It'd be cool. And again, it is cool in this part. And again, it's something I actually end up appreciating and I dig. So that's just all great. But really, as far as songs, there's really not a bad song here. Probably the only song I have to say that I don't care for much is Burnt. Because it's probably the closest to being really just angry. But I think in some cases I almost feel like, and I'm just going to be really honest with you, I feel some of this, as far as the lyrics, it just seems to be angry for the sake of angry. I guess because of just how many times we can shout expletives or shout motherfucker all the time. That's only my little tiny nitpick of this album. But for the most part, even Burnt, I do somewhat enjoy when it's on. But for the most part, I wouldn't say it's my favorite song. It's probably my least favorite song on the album. But that's just my honest opinion when really looking into this album. But for the most part, there's just really nothing bad on here. There's some great stuff on here. Again, the musicianship is pretty good. Again, Caleb Davies, I think, is a great drummer. He does great. So that's all I got to say there. So there you go. There is my review for Rampage from Cruella. And as far as my rating, it's a 8.20 out of 10. Again, it's a very solid album. There really isn't anything on here that I don't really hate. It's just that there's again some tiny nitpicks here and there, but for the most part, it's an album that I do enjoy. But if this is an album that you would at least enjoy, I recommend checking out Rampage from Cruella. If you're not familiar with these guys, I would say definitely check out any of these albums from them. Again, it's just solid US metal, that is for sure. So if you dig just great classic US metal or underground US metal, that's very close from like the 1980s. Again, I think you'll definitely enjoy Rampage from Cruella. Again, this was released all the way back in 2019. Again, it's a very solid album. I think it's definitely here and there good enough of being in any of your guys' physical collection. So there you go. There is my review. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed, and thank you, Roger, for at least sending this album out to me. I definitely appreciated it. It was all cool. So with that, I hope you enjoyed as well. I hope you got something out of this review. So with that, this is everything I should say. I'm out, and I hope all of you enjoy. Take care, everyone.